everybody. I'm so glad to see you. I found these Easter eggs, and as you can tell, these are not normal Easter eggs. At first, I thought maybe we had left some out back from last Easter egg hunt, but then I realized that these actually tell us the real story of Easter. So we're going to start opening them and see if we can find out what really happened and why we celebrate Easter. Now, our first egg has a donkey. That's definitely not a Snickers bar. Now, the donkey reminds us of what we celebrated last Sunday. If you were at a church last Sunday, that we celebrated something called Palm Sunday. And Palm Sunday is when Jesus came into Jerusalem, and the Bible tells us that Jesus rode into Jerusalem on a donkey. So our donkey reminds us of Palm Sunday and how Jesus entered the city before Easter happened. All right. Let's see what we have here. Oh, now here we have a loaf of bread. And now, after Jesus came into the city, we know that he had a special meal with his disciples. It was the Passover celebration. And at this special dinner, Jesus stood up and he held the bread and said, "This is my body broken for you." And then I bet it's in the next egg. After they had the bread, it is. He held up the cup and said that the wine in it is his blood poured out for them. Now, they were kind of confused. You probably would have been too if you'd been there. But now that we know what happened, we call this the Lord's Supper or the Last Supper because it's Jesus's last meal on earth. And we still do this to this day to remember him by. All right, let's see what our next egg is. Oh, now, after Jesus had dinner with his disciples, some other stuff happened this week. And one of those things was that one of his disciples betrayed him. One of his disciples named Judas handed him over to the government officials for 30 pieces of silver. And so these coins remind us of what Judas did and how he played a part of the Easter story. Let's see what's going to be in this egg. Oh, our prize egg is rolling away. Now, after Jesus was betrayed, things did not go so well for him at all. Jesus was arrested. And he was handed over to a guy named Pilate, who was he was a government official. He was in charge. And so they took him to be a prisoner and they put him before their ruler, Pilate. And Pilate had Jesus whipped. Now, this is kind of what it would have looked like with lots of strings and lots of little tingly pieces that they hit Jesus. And it really hurt Jesus. He went through a lot of pain. We'll see in the next few eggs. All because he loved us. Now, Jesus hadn't done anything wrong. The people that arrested him and hurt him, they did this to Jesus because they knew if people followed him that they might lose their power and they might lose their position, and they kind of needed Jesus out of the way. All right. Now, after they beat Jesus, they sent him to be crucified. Now, crucified meant to be killed by hanging on a cross. You see crosses all over our stuff. And in Jesus's day, this was horrible. This was embarrassing and painful. And it was really not a good way to die. But now, because we know the rest of the egg story, we know that Jesus loved us enough to die on this cross for us. Now, Jesus's cross would have been much heavier than this and much bigger, and they would have made him carry it straight up a hill. And this all would have happened on what we celebrate now as Good Friday. Now, when they took Jesus up to the cross, they then did something even meaner and more painful. They took 3 nails, big nails, and they attached Jesus to the cross. They hammered him and hung him on the cross so that he could not move and he could not escape in any way. And that hurt him a lot. Now, we know that Jesus is God and that Jesus can do anything. So why would Jesus let someone hurt him this much and let the soldiers put these nails in him? And we know that Jesus did this because he loved us so much, that he wanted us to be able to be with God. And the only way to do that was for him to be the sacrifice for our sins. And so he gave himself and went through this pain because he loved us so much. And now another thing that hurt Jesus is they made a crown out of branches with thorns on it. So it would have been twisted up kind of like this one, but would have had big spikes. And they put it on Jesus's head. And that hurt a lot. And they were making fun of him. They were saying, oh, you're the king, huh? This is your crown. And now we know really that Jesus is the king and how much he loved us. And it has become a symbol of the pain Jesus went through because he loved us so much. All right. Now, I know this part of the story is very scary. It was not a good part of Easter. This is a part that Jesus went through a lot. And we know that at the end of this day, Jesus died. Now, one of the reasons that we can know for sure that Jesus died and that it wasn't a trick is that the soldiers took a spear. And they took a spear kind of like this with a pointy end, and they put it in Jesus's side. And we know that even if Jesus had survived everything else that happened, he wouldn't have survived a spear being put in his side. That maybe Jesus didn't pass out, that he actually died. And that's one of the ways we know that the Easter story is true. Now, our prize egg keeps rolling away. I'm really curious what's in that one. It seems to have a mind of its own. All right, our next egg has something very special in it. Now, after Jesus died, it was about to be sundown, and they weren't allowed to bury him after the sun went down. So they were kind of in a hurry. And there was a man named Joseph. Now, Joseph, this is not the Joseph from the Christmas story that we know. This is another Joseph. A man named Joseph went and asked the soldiers, even though it was kind of embarrassing and risky for him to do it, he asked if he could bury Jesus's body. And so they took Jesus's body, they wrapped it up in a cloth, and they put it in a tomb that belonged to Joseph. So like a big cave, because they knew he was dead and they buried him. Now, the people that made sure Jesus died were a little worried that something weird would happen, that maybe the disciples would steal Jesus's body or go to some extreme level to prove that Jesus was who they had said he was the whole time. And so they put guards outside of Jesus's tomb, and they put a big giant rock in front of the door. Now, the rock would have been much bigger than this rock right here. It would have been maybe the size of like a car, really big rock. It would have taken like 2 men to push it, if not more. And so the 2 soldiers were guarding the tomb and making sure that nothing happened. And they were there for 2 days. And then on the 3rd day, something really dramatic happened. On the 3rd day, which is what we celebrate on Easter, the Bible tells us that that morning there was an earthquake and that an angel came to earth, and an angel moved the stone out of the way and then sat on top of it. Now, the guards, whose job was to keep this place secure, were so scared that they passed out. And the women were coming to make sure Jesus's body was properly buried. Because remember, we were in a hurry on Friday. He just got wrapped up. But the women found an angel, and they found the rock being rolled away. And inside the tomb, they found what's in our prize egg. Are you ready to see what's in our prize egg? There's nothing in our prize egg, because there was nothing in the tomb when the ladies went to take care of Jesus's body. Jesus's body was gone. The cloth that he had been wrapped in was there. The rock was there, even though it was moved, but Jesus wasn't there. And the Bible tells us that the angels then said, well, why are you looking for the living among the dead? He isn't here, he is risen. They went and told the disciples and let them know that Jesus had risen, that Jesus did not stay dead. We celebrate Easter because the tomb was empty, because that is what makes Jesus so important. If Jesus had stayed dead, he would have just been like any other crazy guy claiming to be the Son of God. But Jesus really was the Son of God. And he didn't just die on the cross. He rose again and is still living. The Bible tells us that God demonstrated his love for us in this, that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. God knows that we mess up. God loved us enough to make a way to be close to him again. And nothing we can do for ourselves will make us good enough to clean up our own sins. Only Jesus could do that. And that is what he did for us on the cross. He sacrificed himself and he rose again so that we could be with God forever. Now, when you're hunting eggs this Easter, if you happen to find an empty one, instead of just being sad that there weren't M&Ms in it, you can also take a minute and remember the empty tomb, and that Jesus loved us so much that he came to earth, and that's the real reason we celebrate Easter.